Good afternoon, web denizens. I'm Daniel, and on this lovely Monday afternoon, I am here with the weekly recap of basically retarded, lukewarm TTRPG takes that I am calling Intelligence as a Dump Stat. I almost thought this lovely little series was going to die in the cradle because, as per the usual, TTRPG social media let me down. Very little stupidity worth mentioning popped up in my feeds. However, both the Sparkle Troll commune and the Rawtard communities came through for me at the end to give me some people to dunk on, as the kids say. Thanks, morons. Couldn't do it without you. You saved me from having to take the necessary shots to visit the festering disease-filled pustule that is Reddit, or even worse, having to corrupt my speakers with the halted, stuttering voice of a certain Canadian bird-brained YouTuber to get content for the week. Let's start over on the X feed of one Elven Maid Inn, where she came into contact with what was apparently a pot-headed commie who smoked away the few remaining brain cells in his otherwise empty skull. He's not a content creator or other social media type, so I won't be naming him. No need to further amplify his ignorance. So, what was he on about? Well, let's start with the dumbass tweet at the core of the matter. There are no rules in D&D. That's why it's called a Dungeon Master's Guide and a Player's Handbook, not a rule book. Let's set aside for a moment the various vapid and cretinous replies this person vomited into the world and start with the back cover of the Player's Handbook, not rule book. Since he chose to post a picture of the 2024 book, we'll use that one. This revised and expanded Player's Handbook is in the essential reference for every 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons player. It contains rules for character creation and advancement, exploration, combat, equipment, spells, and much more. It contains rules in the game that doesn't have rules. Similarly, that Dungeon Master's Guide, not Dungeon Master's Rules, has the following printed on the back cover. Inside, you'll find world-building advice, a pre-built yet customizable D&D world, tricks for creating memorable adventures, hundreds of magic items, rules for players-controlled strongholds. Inside, you'll find rules for player-controlled strongholds. Inside, you'll find rules. But there are no rules, idiot. Somehow, that wasn't the least intelligent thing this ganja-addled half-wit produced from his rectum before defaulting to the idiot's last resort. Quote tweeting instead of replying so that his replies could get his buddies in on it to parrot his idiocy before anyone noticed that he had responded. Suffice it to say, he touched on all the classics, such as claiming that no one provided any examples to support their claims when they had in fact replied hours earlier before his quote tweet with a litany of examples. To use the shiniest of these gems, when the 2024 edition was accused of focusing on virtue signaling as opposed to making a well-designed game, he demanded examples. He was provided several, but one was the removal of half races from the D&D PHB. He tried to claim that wasn't virtue signaling or related to faux racism concerns, and then when he was provided with comments from Wizards of the Coast staff where they admitted that that's exactly why it was happening, this numbnuts tried to claim that they actually didn't take anything out, only to be faced with the table of contents that no longer includes half races. Mr. Stevenson, intelligence is clearly your dump stat. If you had any audience to speak of, I'd plug your full name and X handle for the world to mock. Let's touch on the opposite side of the fence here, lest someone claim that I'm just picking on the poor woke lefties and their medical marijuana cards they use to apparently treat mental retardation. Chicken or the egg, I guess. From the right side of the aisle, we have one Ryan Greg Howard, a devotee of the Basic Expert and allegedly a game designer and publisher. I say allegedly because as far as I can find, the only thing RGH Press has published recently is a Substack of his own essays on old school D&D, where he claims every game that doesn't fall in line with his specific style of play is games meant to sit on bookshelves. That's right, the tactic of claiming that all the players who disprove his claims merely by existing don't actually exist because he has it on good authority that they don't actually play any games. Good authority from his colon, which is in a perfect position to whisper in his ear based on the location of his head. As for games, there was a successful Kickstarter, by which I mean it hit its goal of approximately 1 week's pay after taxes, that I can't seem to find any place to purchase. It apparently had a supplement on DriveThruRPG, but that is also a dead link now. I wonder if his 127 backers actually got what they paid for. So what did he do? Well, Sandy Peterson, the guy who made Call of Cthulhu, posted, I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. If you are a keeper in Call of Cthulhu and a player snarks, though rules say differently, you have my complete permission to say, Sandy Peterson told me that my interpretation of this rule is the correct one. Ryan, of course, didn't actually reply. He quote tweeted with the caption, this mindset is a great way to drive players away from your table in droves. GMs must abide by the rules also. Yes, that's right. The publisher, with a game you can't find anywhere after a $6,000 Kickstarter, feels he knows better how to keep players engaged and happy in the table than the guy who created one of the best-selling TTRPGs of all time. And I called him on it, pointing out that the guy who has long-standing groups that go back to the 1970s definitely doesn't know how to keep players happy at the table, to which I got the classic, okay, you try that and see what happens response. I'm sure you guys can see where this is going. Pointed out that I have tried that for over 25 years with only 1 or 2 players ever leaving my table over a game-related matter, and that Rule 0 does in fact exist in every single TTRPG for a reason, which was only to have him fall back on the basic expert as some kind of Rule 0 authority and try to 40 years away all examples of him simply being wrong. That's right, folks, another disingenuous narcissist birthed from the rotting dump that is TBE's school of rewriting BX and calling yourself an OSR designer. At least Expert has some decent design examples in his work, but his drones are just kind of black. At least we know where the good Lord put that 3 when he rolled their abilities. Now I've punched down, and I've punched roughly level. Let's try punching up at a completely different flavor of stupid. Old Mr. Stevenson and Ryan, I wish I was Robert Howard, both popped off with genuine, honest stupidity, while our final example hits home with the good old-fashioned, bought and paid for shillery in their particular brand of idiocy. Who is our culprit? Why, it's Ginny D herself. That's right, Generic Ginny was doing her usual song and dance of running interference for her masters over at Woke Tards of the Coast, and, of course, spouted off some truly stupid commentary. We all know where this is going. Ginny used her questionable cosplay skills to dress up as someone with a functioning brain, and she failed miserably. But this isn't the orc removal field of bad takes we're currently burning through the 5e space. We covered a bunch of the taking orcs out thing last week. No, Jenny chose gender swapping as a vehicle to completely miss the point. While speaking on the topic of Wizards of the Coast creating opposite gendered versions of certain monsters, in defiance of cultural accuracy and common sense, Jenny had this to say from her video on the Monster Manual. Now, I know there are people ready to poop themselves that the made-up tree lady can be a made-up tree guy now. And thoughts and prayers, I guess. But honestly, I'm not interested in those people. Some will claim they're defending accuracy, but I hate to break it to you, these creatures aren't real. We made them up, and the people who made them up held a lot of beliefs about what gender is, and that reflected in their writings and stories. We aren't trapped by whatever the people before us made up. We can rewrite our fantasy to reflect our current values. This is one of the single most arrogant, self-absorbed, self-righteous displays of postmodernist ignorance that I've seen in a very long time. First, and I will not give her the benefit of the doubt that she's referring to the cultures that actually created the creatures she mentioned as examples. The evil, straight white males in the 70s she desperately wants to erase from history while claiming their work for herself did not make up these monsters. Succubi and incubi are products of the same Jewish mysticism that this being used as an excuse for why liches now need soul jars instead of phylacteries. Dryads, satyrs, harpies, and nymphs are all products of ancient Greek mythology, and banshees are spirits from ancient Irish folklore. They were not made up based on any modern theory of outdated gender roles. In fact, most of them were either a celebration of the good aspects of classic masculinity or femininity, or warnings against the negative aspects. Either way, each represents very specific and distinct aspects of an ancient culture, and each one has sex that is intrinsically linked to what it is. Banshees are not dead elf maids. They are female spirits that sing in grief to herald the imminent passing of the head of a household, and they generally appear as the spirits of young women from that family who tragically died as virgins. Why women? Because in ancient Irish culture, the mourning of the dead by women of the family was a very important and sacred duty. Male banshees are basically a perversion of ancient Irish culture, but to Jenny, it's just another place to stick it to the mythical patriarchy that she learned about in gender studies class before dropping out of a liberal arts college. Satyrs are basically a caricature of every undesirable aspect of a man who lacks discipline, unattractive, destructive, driven by sexual appetites, and generally mischief-making bastards. They are the embodiment of males who lack restraints put on them by reason and society. They are distinguished by their constant pursuit of nymphs and dryads who generally rebuff them for their brutish and ugly ways. You'd think that the Jennies of the world would want to leave the personification of bad male behavior in place, but then the kind of sexual deviance and lack of responsibility is exactly the male behavior postmodern feminists encourage girls to emulate. And so there's that. Nymphs and dryads, those celebrations of the nurturing maternal nature of women and idealized female beauty, the glorification of female nature and form, another one of those things that a little reading of the classics would suddenly make Jenny D's view of their world change tunes. But no, I guess they need femboy spirits to personify their ideal non-binary assigned at birth male thing. Point is, Jenny D, while running interference for her coastal magical masters, has also decided that anything said that disagrees with the dismantling of everything that came before her own green-haired postmodern worldview is some flavor of istphobia. That is why we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that she uses intelligence as a dump stat. Who did I miss? Did I slaughter one of your sacred cows? Be sure to let me know in an angry comment filled with typos and missing punctuation that accentuates your fury. Or tell me what dunderheaded nincompoop graced your feed but not mine this week. Till then, hit that thumbs up, make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss your next opportunity to rage out in the comment section, and be sure to share this where the subjects of the video can see it. I'll see you guys next time.